Welcome to day 2 of Internship Week. We're so glad that you're here today and signing up for this very important session on LinkedIn. And today we have our distinguished speaker, Daniel Levitch, who is, after graduating from CSUN in 2004, Daniel went on to receive his Master of Science in Educational Counseling and a Pupil Personnel Services credential.
Never easy to say out loud. It's a mouthful.
I always trip up on that one.
Yeah.
He was the program manager of a Los Angeles County WorkSource Center and worked with the College of Canyons Career Center before becoming a career counselor for California State University, Northridge. He has hosted seminars on networking, developing your online presence, the hidden job market, and more, all in an effort to better prepare students for the workforce. Daniel loves good food, bad movies, and ugly dogs.
Yes, now and forever.
And here we invite Daniel to speak to us today. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Jan. I appreciate the introduction. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to one of my absolute favorite topics that I get to present on, and that is developing your online presence and specifically how to use LinkedIn to help sort of curate that online presence and present a version of you that you're looking to put out there for potential employers, for potential internships, any number of opportunities. LinkedIn over the last few years has really become an incredible resource to use as a portfolio piece, to use in terms of networking. And it's one that is a common form of communication for recruiters all across the country and honestly, globally now. Recruiters are using it. They understand LinkedIn. They are paying to be part of LinkedIn, to be on LinkedIn, and using the various recruiter tools that they have at their disposal. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Give me one moment. I apologize. This is my first presentation I am giving with glasses. They are brand new as of Friday. So if I'm fiddling with them, it just means I'm getting used to them. So give me 1 second. All right, so let's take a look. Let's just begin by, I think, answering what is really the fundamental question here, and that is, why is having an online presence so important? There's a number of reasons that it's important, but the main reason that I want to talk to you about is the idea that recruiters have changed, have evolved their job search process. Many recruiters, whether they are willing to admit it or not, are Googling you after they receive your application, receive your resume, to develop, to start to develop what they call industry trust. They want to learn about you. They want to see that what it is that you claim on your resume is in fact true, and they'll do so by Googling you and seeing what's out there. It used to be really popular back in the day to recommend to our students to take all of their social media settings and private, all of them straight down. Learn your privacy settings was like the motto of, I feel like, 2014. But that has since changed, because what ended up happening was this sort of weird, unexpected, or perhaps fully expected, depending on your perspective, backlash to that mindset, where recruiters started saying, well, okay, if you're going to make everything private, then I'm going to fill in the blanks myself, and I'll do so negatively. I'll start to think there's a reason that you want it private, and what could that reason be, right? And that's exactly the kind of mindset that we're looking to avoid by using a website like LinkedIn to curate that online presence, right? I want to be intentional about what I'm putting out there so that I can take my personal social medias, I can private those if I so desire, but I can use a professional social media networking tool like LinkedIn to start thinking about what it is that I want to put out about myself. What is my brand? You'll hear the term brand used often. What is it that I want employers to see. And I could be really intentional about exactly that. So we'll go into exactly what the various aspects of LinkedIn entail, and we'll talk a little bit about how to use it to your advantage. So let's talk a little bit about, sorry, give me one second here, how we go about finding work to begin with. So we're going to peel it back a layer. One of the most common things I hear from my students when I ask them about how they're going about looking for work is they'll tell me some version of, well, I went on Indeed.com and I used the search function. I typed in my, my major or my career field that I'm interested in, maybe a job, and I went and looked to see what was out there. But the truth is that that does you a real disservice, because a website like Indeed is an aggregate site that takes websites like Career Builder and Monster and sites of that ilk and puts them into one website where you can see all these online jobs. The problem is that websites like Career Builder and Monster have salespeople. So I'm giving you a little bit of context here, so I apologize. But they have salespeople that go out and ask various employers if they'd like to spend X number of dollars to advertise on their site. And about 20%, about 1 in every 5 do. 1 in every 5 say, sounds good, I could use the boost in eyeballs. I want more people looking at our potential job openings. And so they'll sign on with like a monster.com or a career builder who guarantees them a certain number of eyeballs looking at their job applications. On the other hand, that leaves about 80% of the jobs that are not posted on a website like Monster or Career Builder, and thus don't even end up on a website like Indeed. And so the real question is, how do we tap into that hidden job market, right? How do we go about doing that? And that's where a website like LinkedIn really comes in, where the power of networking really kind of takes the forefront. So as you can see here, you've got your sort of visible job market. Those are your advertised jobs. And then underneath that is your hidden job market. And when it comes to networking, when it comes to building a relationship with somebody, LinkedIn is a great tool, one of really an arsenal of tools that you can use at your disposal, right? You can meet people at professional organizations. You certainly meet people every day, in various classes you're in, professors, right, can become part of your network. You can develop a mentorship in a variety of ways, but LinkedIn is an incredibly powerful tool to reach out to individuals who you might otherwise not have access to. And that's through something called second-degree connections, which I'm going to talk about at length in just a little bit. So let's go into building our profile and what really goes into building that profile. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here. And I will say to whoever's moderating the chat that I don't have to wait until the very end to answer questions. If people have questions as I go, I'm happy to hit the pause and answer questions right then and there as well. Let me go ahead and bring up my LinkedIn here for a moment. So I'm going to go through a few different aspects of LinkedIn that I think are worth your time knowing about and really create a more robust LinkedIn page. Now, one thing I will say is that LinkedIn is a great thing to have on your resume, especially in your contact info. You'll notice in your contact info for resumes, most of the time, it'll be recommended that you have your phone number in there. You'll have your email address, less on your physical address now. Sometimes it's just worth putting your city. But one thing that I think is really worth putting in there is the URL link to your LinkedIn page, because again, it's all about developing trust. Whatever it is that I claim I can do through job duties or through potential skills, maybe certificates on my resume, I'm going to make sure that I have represented in LinkedIn through photographs, video, documents, and the like. We'll kind of go through different opportunities you could do that. So the first thing you'll notice on LinkedIn here is my photograph. I actually just recently put a brand new photograph. I decided if I'm going to have glasses, I should at least reflect that, not to mention the gray in my beard. I should probably have a more recent photo than the one I had as of this morning. So that is a newer photo I put up. But you'll notice that in addition to the photo being sort of cropped at shoulder length, which is a pretty standard size for a photo, what you're going to want to make sure you do is look at other LinkedIn pages for the field you're looking to get into and see what types of photos they have. For some fields, they tend to go much more conservative with their photo, and some fields are going to be much more sort of liberal-minded in the type of photo that they have. More creative fields, for example, might reflect a more liberal-minded photo. So take a look and see what the sort of standard is for people in your industry. Likewise, for the background photo there, when I click this little pencil right here, I can change that photo. It's really important to be able to put your viewer, in this case, potentially a recruiter, in the zone of your particular field. So it was important to me that I found something that represented education. And so I went with the CSUN library here as a sort of representation of campus life. And so make sure you are putting yourself in that zone. Now, I'm actually going to bring up somebody else's LinkedIn here. I really like what this gentleman, Corin Young, does with his LinkedIn page. I tend to use this as an example. So Corin is in post-production in the film industry. And I can see here by his background photo that it immediately places me in that industry, right? I see a green screen there. I see a soundboard. Again, he's got that shoulder cropped photo. So he's really deliberate in the impression that he's making with his LinkedIn page. The next thing you'll notice is that he has a, in addition to his name, is he has video producer and creative director for his job title. Now, job titles can be aspirational. Before he was paid, before he was a professional in the field of video production, he had put that he was a video producer. He hadn't gotten paid for it yet, but that's still something that he was aspiring to be. And when he eventually found his first job in the field, had validated that job title. But you can be aspirational in your job title itself. The next thing you'll notice is mutual connections. This tells me that I have 76 people in common. We have 76 connections in common. That's important to know, as when we get into how to build that network, we'll be tapping into those second degree connections in a moment. I'll explain that. The next thing, as we scroll down here, you'll see that Corin has highlights. He's got Cal State University Northridge here, and an about section. Now, this is really important. The about section itself is generally written in the third person, though I've seen them written in first person as well. And it tells a little bit of a story. It's the equivalent to LinkedIn's version of a cover letter. In this case, it usually goes into a little bit about your past, what got you interested and passionate about your particular field. And then it tells what you decided to do about it. I went to school for this. After I became passionate about this industry, I went to school for it, and here's what I want to do with it. So it's a little bit of a beginning, middle, and end type of story that you're telling with your about section. The about section also is a great place to put any sort of keywords that recruiters may search for on LinkedIn. So make sure you're infusing it with the language of your particular field. Underneath the about section here, we can see that Corin has under his activity section, it tells me, or a recruiter, a lot about Corin. It tells me that he's active on LinkedIn, right? I see here that Corin posted, about a week ago. He wrote, "That was so awesome. I really enjoyed watching it. This is so fun to watch." So he is active on LinkedIn. That tells me something as a recruiter. It tells me that he is active with his social media. It is a good sign that he is tapped into his network. And definitely something that is factored in for recruiters when hiring. Under the experience section here, things get really interesting because he has a number of different jobs. He was the director of post-production at RK Studios, creative director for Video Bump. He was a Blu-ray author for Deluxe Digital Studios. But what's really important to note here is that things start getting really visually intensive here. He has videos of things that he's worked on. If I go back to my LinkedIn here, you'll take a look. You can see what I did with that section. Give me one moment. For that section, I actually have photos of me giving presentations, just like I'm doing right now. And I may actually even afterwards try to get a snippet of a recording that I can put video on my LinkedIn as well. What I'm doing, again, it goes back to building trust with my recruiter, right? Trust is gold in this industry, especially in the recruiting industry, because the more they can verify about you, the more confident they'll feel in making a multi-$1,000 decision on who to hire, right? It's a gamble for a recruiter. And when they see that not only am I saying that I am a strong communicator, for example, that I give presentations, I'm proving it. I have photos of me giving presentations here on my LinkedIn. Now, one thing I wanted to actually scroll back up because I noticed that Corin didn't have it on his page, but I do on mine, is this section here. This is your featured section. It's a great opportunity to just show off a little bit about yourself that you feel like strongly represents you in your field. Again, I have, for example, a photo of me working at a job fair. So that's something that we do as career counselors here on campus at CSUN. I also have next to that an image of me presenting on the power of networking. And that tells a recruiter, this person is who he says he is. He's able to do that. Now, what this doesn't say is whether or not I'm any good at it, right? This doesn't say I'm showing a picture of me presenting, but for all they know, I could be a terrible presenter. That's why when we go down on LinkedIn, there's a section for recommendations. And we'll get into that in just a moment as well. So scrolling down here, you can see that I go into my education a little bit. Now, education, I feel like actually I could put a lot more under my education. I could upload documents of my diplomas. I could upload images of any clubs and organizations I was in. I can even use this for internship photos and videos as well. Really kind of make it a more robust section on my LinkedIn page. So you can take your education page and add a whole lot to it. In fact, let me go into education here for a second. And you can see all the different categories you can have. The field of study, start, end, grades, activities and societies, description. You can upload media. So there's quite a bit you can do with your education on LinkedIn. Back here. I'm actually going to bring up Corin's one more time here. My apologies for oscillating back and forth between two pages, but I think there are some things that he does really well with his page, and then there's some things that I do really well with my page. So I want to give you sort of the best of both worlds here. So you can see he has volunteer opportunities here. It's a great opportunity to really demonstrate any of your volunteerism, your internships. Under skills here, this is the kind of thing I was talking about when it comes to recommendations and endorsements. This tells a recruiter that you're good at what you claim you're good at. So I can see here that Corin put, for example, that he's good at video production. He's got 50 skills listed here. You can put as many as you want. And then what's really nice about skills and endorsements is I can see here 66 people here endorsed Corin with video production, or 61 with video production, DVD production 48, film 39 people, 30 people for film production, all the way down. I can see that people are endorsing him. What's really nice about endorsements is that you don't need to ask people to endorse you. They'll do so passively. That number grows the moment you build your LinkedIn page. The moment you have a LinkedIn page, people will come to your page and will have the opportunity. It'll say, do you agree with Corin? Do you think he's really good at film production? Well, if I've worked with him in the past and I do think that he's good at it, I'll click yes, and I have thus endorsed him. So you don't even have to do anything on your part to build that number over time. For example, under mine, I have presentations, and I have a number of people who've endorsed me on those presentations, or career counseling. I have a number of people, or resume writing, whatever it is that I do as a career counselor. I have that under my skills under LinkedIn. They can be passively endorsed, something that I don't have to reach out to. On the other hand, if you need on the other hand, the one thing you do need to reach out to people for is recommendations. And you can see here that Corin's had solicited a number of recommendations. You can, I can click here, for example, recommend Corin, or he can go to my page and ask, say, Daniel, can you recommend me? There's a little section there to do that. And here's an example of a recommendation. We recently worked with Corin to create an audio version of a book I wrote, and also create a promo video for the same book. His work ethic is exemplary. He's so cool to work with, very diligent, very focused, always on time, always does what he says, an absolute delight. Really clear. Now, knowing Corin the way I know him, I can guarantee you that when he asked Paul for a recommendation, he gave him some guidelines as well. He probably said, do you mind speaking to this aspect of our work together? Instead of just saying, can you recommend me? Never be shy about asking if they can recommend some specific aspect of the way you work. Maybe your communication skills, maybe your organization skills. Select something in particular so they have a framework with which to work from. Corin also has here a list of projects in the film industry in particular. It's very project-based, so he has projects here that he's worked on. And then here under interests, anytime you follow someone, a company, an influencer, a group, or a school, it automatically shows up under your interest page. It's actually a really underutilized but really important part of LinkedIn, because it tells a recruiter that you're, again, tapped into the industry. It tells me something about you, about the people that you follow. So be really conscientious about who you decide to follow, because that is shown on your LinkedIn page and says something about you. Speaking of shown on your LinkedIn page, when you go to somebody else's LinkedIn page, especially for recruiters who pay to be on LinkedIn, they can see that you've looked at their page. There are privacy settings where you can turn that off if you like, but as a standard, most people can see that you've looked at their page. So worth knowing before you do so. That could be used to your advantage, certainly. And when I connect with recruiters, I do use that to my advantage, but it is worth knowing. Before I go on, let me just hit the pause button for a second and see if anyone's got any questions for me. All right, as questions crop up, again, feel free to ask in real time. You don't have to wait till the very end. You can put it in the chat, and then I'm happy to answer. So a few things, in addition to just building your LinkedIn page, I get a lot of people who ask me, well, I'll ask them, do you have a LinkedIn page? And for the most part, most people will raise their hand and say, yeah, I've got some sort of version of a LinkedIn page. I don't know if it's complete or not. But then I'll ask, are you using your LinkedIn page? And almost all of those hands drop, right? A very small percentage, I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but a very small percentage actually says that they use their LinkedIn page in any real capacity. So I'm going to kind of go over a few ways right now that you can use your LinkedIn page and really get the most out of it. So I mentioned second degree connections, the concept of second degree connections a number of times. I'm going to kind of show you how that works right now. Second. So let's say, for example, I'm interested in working for Disney. And honestly, this is the real reason that I recommend starting to connect with professionals in your field, connect with your network on LinkedIn as early as you can. I would start right away if you can, is because you want to start growing those connections. The more connections you have, the more access you have to their connections, second degree connections. Now, that being said, I am not a believer, and this is a personal choice. Some people connect with every single person that tries to connect with them. I'm a little bit more conservative with my safety, I guess. And so what I do is I'm willing to connect with you if we've at least met, if we've been at a conference together, if we've worked on a project together, whether it's educationally speaking or on the job. If somebody's reached out to me and we've maybe had an email exchange, I'm more willing to connect with you. But I don't just connect with every single person that tries to connect with me on LinkedIn. And you'll find that once you're on LinkedIn, you get a lot of people who try to connect with you because their end goal might be some sort of sales related pitch to you. So I tend to be much more conscious about connecting with real people. So over the years, you'll notice that I've built up 377 connections. That's a lot of value to me because my network expands exponentially every single time I connect with somebody because I now have access to their connections. And here's how I'm going to show you how that works. So let's say I'm interested, for example, in working for Disney, Walt Disney Company. Under the Walt Disney Company, I can click on the number of employees they have. And I can see here, this number here, the second here, tells me that we are a second degree connection. I actually think I can filter it by just second degree. Yeah, there we go. Second degree connections are, to me, the single most valuable thing that LinkedIn has to offer, because this now puts me in touch with a whole host of individuals that I have never met before, right? So I can see here, look, there's a talent researcher, this gentleman, Curtis. Let's see, what might be, here we go. I see that this person here, Opsi, is in talent acquisition for the Walt Disney Company. Well, that sounds like somebody who might be able to help connect me to a particular job that I'm interested in learning more about. So I look and see, who do we have in common? Well, we have Patrick Bruno and Minas and Duzian here as second degree, as connections in common. So what I can do now is reach out to Patrick or Minas, and I could say that it looks like you are connected to this individual in talent acquisition for Disney named Opsi. Is there any way that you might be willing to connect the two of us, right? So rather than me just reaching out to this talent acquisition coordinator and crossing my fingers and hoping they care, I now have somebody who can vouch for me, somebody who can say that I'm worth their time to speak with. And that's so valuable. Again, that's like gold in this industry. Anytime you have somebody's name, anytime you have somebody who can vouch for you, it is so critical and such a powerful tool in your toolbox. So maybe I reach out to Patrick, and Patrick sets up a meeting for the two of us to talk, or maybe emails the two of us and CCs one of us on there and connects us. And now I can speak to Opsy. I can take it off of my connection with Patrick and speak with her one-on-one eventually, maybe developing my own relationship with that person. Maybe I'm setting up an informational interview where I learn more about the industry, learn more about what she does in her job, maybe find internship opportunities, maybe even procure a mentorship down the road if we've got a strong connection with one another. So I'm a huge fan of secondary degree connections. And a couple of other ways you can really use LinkedIn to your advantage. You'll see here I have LinkedIn News. LinkedIn News is a great way to sort of stay tapped into what's current in your industry. In my field, we meet every Tuesday for a staff meeting. And every Tuesday morning before that staff meeting, I jump on LinkedIn and I look at my LinkedIn News because I want to know what is current and what is happening, right? What is trending in my industry? It's a great way to help you prepare for job interviews, to know what's current in your industry, because LinkedIn News isn't the same for everybody on LinkedIn. LinkedIn News tailors its news to you and to your keywords that you're using on your LinkedIn page. So I'm always jumping on LinkedIn News. LinkedIn Learning, because you are a student at Cal State Northridge, you have access to LinkedIn Learning for free. Most people are paying for various workshops that they'll find on LinkedIn Learning, but if I click here on LinkedIn Learning, let me see really quick. Jan, can you see that I'm on LinkedIn Learning right now?
Yes.
Perfect. So I can see here that there are tailored courses based on my keywords, communicating with confidence. Well, go figure that I'm going to find a workshop on communicating with confidence, teaching with technology. That makes a lot of sense. So these are workshops that oftentimes have some sort of a certificate at the end of the workshop that I can now upload to LinkedIn to prove, again, that I have taken this workshop, that I can put it on my LinkedIn and build that trust with a potential recruiter. All right, Jan, I'm back on my LinkedIn page, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. There's also this jobs tabs here. This jobs tab will send potential career opportunities recommended for you based on your profile and your search history. It's a great way to learn about potential jobs that you may not have searched for, but its algorithm is determining you may be interested in. It's the same way Netflix recommends new shows to me. It will recommend new career opportunities to you as well. So a couple things I wanted to add that I think are really cool in preparation for this particular workshop. I went and looked at anything new that LinkedIn has to offer, because I do this workshop about once every 6 months or so, and things change from 6 months to 6 months. 6 months is an eternity in the world of tech. And what I've noticed is that when you click on my profile now, you can add on your LinkedIn page how to pronounce your name. There's a little speaker here that if I click, I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. Let me see. Were you able to hear that, Jan?
No.
Ah, shoot, it's probably an audio setting. Anyway, I heard it and it's there, and a recruiter will certainly hear it on your page. So one thing, it took me a little bit to figure out how to upload my name pronunciation there. I've had my last name butchered since kindergarten, so I was very happy to see this feature. But you can't add the audio version of your name on a desktop. It has to be on your mobile app. It's the only way that it'll do it. So just be aware of that as you're trying to add the pronunciation of your name. The other thing I mentioned earlier was that on your resume, it's always a wise idea to put your URL on your resume, on your contact info, so that they can just click on your resume and then see all the things that you have on your resume as a portfolio. In order to add that URL, don't be afraid to go up here to this edit public profile and URL section, because a lot of the time your initial URL might be a bunch of random numbers and letters and might not make a lot of coherent sense to a recruiter. So in order to make it really clean, you can go ahead and edit your public profile. Oh, you can personalize the URL for your profile. So take a second to do that just by clicking here on what you want it to say for your URL. All right. I do want to talk a little bit about um, connecting with recruiters. I hear a lot of people say that they have a LinkedIn page, that they're not sure how they should connect with a recruiter. Is it okay to just, click the connect button again and cross your fingers and hope? Like, what's the sort of standard way to go about doing it? And I'm going to show you what LinkedIn recommends. Let me stop sharing here for a moment. Uh, All right. So unfortunately, I don't have it up to share that screen, but I'm going to go over it with you. So basically, LinkedIn recommends to do what they refer to as hugging first, which basically means look at their LinkedIn page. Let them know that you're interested in them and what it is that they do. So start by simply taking a look at their page. They'll get a notification that they did, and then start looking at other social medias that you can connect with without needing to be approved. Something like a Twitter, right? I can just follow a recruiter on Twitter, and now I'll be on their radar. They'll have seen me twice. They'll have seen that I looked at their page, and they'll see that I've connected with that I've followed them on Twitter. That's really important because now I won't just be a cold contact trying to get a hold of them. Now they'll actually have me already sort of in their headspace. The third thing I can do is then connect with them, clicking connect on LinkedIn. And when you have a chance to connect with somebody, you have one very special opportunity. And that is that I can write a message to a recruiter at that point. I can tell them a little bit about who I am and my interest in not only that field, but their specific company. Because what they're going to want to know is not that you're interested in your particular field. They're going to want to know why you want to work at Disney and not Warner Brothers or whatever the case might be for you. So I'm always taking a moment to use that opportunity when I connect with them to reach out to them and let them know a little bit about me and my interest in that field. Once they accept you and they connect with you, then you'll have an opportunity to be able to see their contact info. Once you're connected with them, I can click on their contact info, and oftentimes they'll have their email posted there. I'll go from that email and go right to my Gmail or my CSUN account, and I will email them, my resume. I'll ask to be put on their applicant tracking software and thank them. I'll use that opportunity to thank them for connecting with me on LinkedIn. So it's kind of that 4-step process that really allows you to connect with recruiters in sort of the most, healthy way possible. With that, let me kind of put it open for Q&A, see if anyone's got any questions for me.
I'll take over the chat monitoring. So Christian is asking, where can I find the recommendations? They don't see it on their LinkedIn page.
So I believe when you let me bring up mine for a second here. Hold on one second. So it is under the skills portion here. There's a recommendations. So try this. Go back up to the top and go to add profile section. And when you go to add profile section, there should be a section there that says recommendations. See if that works for you.
It worked for Christian. Yay. He says thank you. And I think that's it for questions for now.
All right. Let me see real quick. I'm going to check my cheat sheet here and see if there's anything else that I really wanted to go over. Oh, yes, there's something that I would have, I'd be remiss to not say. So one of the ways you can use LinkedIn in addition to networking and as a portfolio piece is to build what's called building your expertise in the field. I'm going to give a quick story on what that means and tell you how I've seen it work with some level of success, because it's not just LinkedIn that you can do this, but I've seen a lot of people be successful with this using YouTube, for example, where they use it as a forum to discuss their various views on any particular subject that they're interested in pursuing, right? So I can post on LinkedIn, right? I can repost other articles, and I can also go to my LinkedIn and I can make posts. Let me click here. So you can see here, I can start a post, I can add video, I can add photos, I can record a video of me, I can upload this presentation to my LinkedIn. What's really important to know about that is that the more you do that, the more you make posts, whether it's on LinkedIn or your YouTube or a particular website dedicated to, to that particular subject, the more you're going to wind up in Google searches, and the more individuals and recruiters will associate you as an expert in that field, right? So as a quick example, I'm a history nerd, an unabashed history nerd at that. And I follow a number of history-based YouTube pages. And one of them in particular loves to watch movies. I'm also a movie buff, so it's a perfect combination. And this person watches movies and talks about how historically accurate the film is, right? They'll go through and they'll say, in Braveheart, this was totally real, but this was kind of crazy. This would have been at this year, not that year. Anyway, point being that they have built up a body of work, so much so that the studios came calling and offered him work. They said, we noticed this website where you talk about how historically accurate things are. We'd love you to come work for us and tell us how historically accurate something is before we film it, so that we're making it, the correct way, the first time, the right way. And he ended up getting a job that way. This was, if he hadn't put his work out there, whether it's by posting on LinkedIn or using a platform like YouTube, your own blog, what have you, they never would have been able to find him to begin with, because what they told him was that they started to rely on his posts to find out whether something was accurate or not for television shows or film that they were working on. And they decided, let's just go straight to the source and put him on our payroll. Building your expertise in your field is the difference between you trying to, from a recruiter's perspective, you trying to break into a field versus them looking to you to help them out, versus you already being an expert in your field. And it's a world of difference in the way a recruiter looks at you. So don't be afraid to use the posting feature on LinkedIn to really start to build that level of expertise. So that concludes my presentation portion. Again, I'm here if anyone has any questions. I'm happy to answer.
I have a question.
Yes, Jen.
Okay, so how do I access jobs and internships on LinkedIn?
I can access it by using the Jobs tab. And in this case, it goes with suggested job search, but there is here, search by job title here. And I could look for, whatever internship or career opportunity based on using the search function.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question.
Go ahead.
Catherine asked, can you also add the certifications from LinkedIn Learning to our resume?
You can. I think that it works better on LinkedIn, just because it's standard on LinkedIn, but it's not standard on your resume. On your resume, I would put that that's a skill that I have, but not necessarily the LinkedIn certification. I don't know how well that reads on a resume. So for one section you could put on your resume is a certifications section. That's a very common heading for a resume. But LinkedIn certifications in particular don't play as well on a resume as they would on like your LinkedIn page. That's really what it's designed for.
I'd like to add though, how if you, let's say you developed an expertise in Excel and you did that through LinkedIn Learning, you can, like Daniel said, you can put that on your resume. You don't necessarily have to say where that training came from, but if you became an expert based on that, you could put it on there, but it's really up to you. I mean, I understand what Daniel's saying. It reads better on LinkedIn because LinkedIn that's where the training comes from.
Exactly. But like you're saying, Jan, you could put certified in Excel and just put that on your resume.
Yeah, or maybe you learned a skill. Maybe you're a marketing major and you decided that you need to know more about a visual media, and you start to learn Illustrator and Photoshop, so you can do social media marketing and you can do the design and you can do the writing. So sometimes you might want to put something like that on.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, let me see. I knew I had a list of questions here.
Oh, there is another thing, Jen. Do you mind if I jump in real quick?
Go ahead.
I get a lot of people who ask me about LinkedIn Premium and whether or not it's worth it. LinkedIn Premium costs money. It's $29.99 a month. Your first month is free. I'm generally not an advocate of asking students to spend money, right? That's not my go-to. I do think that there are certain things like professional organizations you should invest in. And I think that there are ways, like I talked about how to connect with recruiters to still do that. But one thing that LinkedIn Premium does have is that it allows you to message people who are not part of your connections, and you get 3 of those messages a month. Ask yourself if it's worth it. It may or may not be in your particular case, but it might be a tool you can utilize just in case. That's something worth knowing.
It is a lot of money
I agree.
for anyone, but for a student especially.
It's one of the reasons that I don't have LinkedIn Premium, but I do get a lot of students who ask me about it.
So Christian asked, in terms of asking for recommendations, can we still ask our former manager from a year or 2 ago?
Yes, but I would reach out to them first. Be a human being first. So I'll use my wife as an example. I don't know if she's live streaming this right now, so I apologize. But if you are searching for a particular career and you need recommendations, and you haven't talked to somebody in a couple of years, don't expect to just call them up and say, "Can I have you as a recommendation? Can I use you as a recommendation?" Talk with them first, call them first, connect with them as human beings, see how life is before you just jump into the next maybe phone call or 2 down the road asking them for recommendations. That's why it's so important to stay in touch with people, because you don't know when you're going to need to leverage that connection. And honestly, coming out of the blue could be off-putting for a number of people. Take the time to stay in touch with your connections. And anytime you're going to give a recommendation, sort of like what I was saying earlier about the framework, I've had organizations call me and ask if I can recommend somebody for a particular job, and I'll do my best to do it. But if I don't have that framework, I don't even have a clue what they're looking for. So I'm flying blind. Do your recommendations as a service, and do yourself a service, and tell them what it is that you're hoping that they speak about.
Okay, I see another post that came, or a question that came up in the chat, and that is, it says, I understand the point is to have a public profile, but is there an option to have a private profile until we build it?
Yeah. So great question. Or the way you would do that is you can, with your privacy settings, you can go in. I don't remember exactly how to do it right at the second, but I know the options there. You can go in and make it so nobody can search for you. And then what you do is just don't connect with anybody yet. So make it unsearchable, and then don't connect with anybody until you feel like your LinkedIn represents what it is that you're hoping that it represents. And then you can start connecting with people at that point. And Christian says, is it possible to have a written letter of recommendation put on our profile? Absolutely. Another great question. So what you could do is, if you have a letter of recommendation and you don't want to bother somebody who's not even on LinkedIn, let's say, upload it. You can upload documents as well as photos and videos to your LinkedIn page. Feel free to upload recommendations. That's a great way to go about it.
Julia asked, we build our resumes based off the jobs we want to apply to. Should we or could we do the same for LinkedIn? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a little bit tougher with LinkedIn because you're always tailoring your resume, you're tailoring your cover letter. LinkedIn is a little bit more sort of stagnant in that regard. So you're really playing up your particular field, and it is going to be broader. So it'll be less tailored than your resume would be. Great question. Should the email on LinkedIn be associated with your CSUN email or work email address? I don't have a specific answer for that. Here's what I will say. Make sure it's a professional email. I've had people use their LinkedIn email with, inappropriate terms. Gosh, I think I had one. What was it recently? It was like toker57 at like gmail.com or something like that. But that's the truth, right? I mean, like, you make sure that it's professional. Try to get as close to your name as you can. Use middle initials if you have to. Use some numbers, but keep it professional as you can. And the same, I know this isn't LinkedIn oriented, but the same goes for your voicemail. I've called candidates back that I was interested in hiring, got their voicemail, had an incredibly inappropriate voice message, and that changed the trajectory of that person's hiring.
Jeremy asked, do you recommend services like VMOC for helping with creating a LinkedIn profile? And are there any other services online that you recommend?
I think VMOC's great for categories that you might not have thought about. I think it does a great job of organizing your thoughts. But LinkedIn walks you through the process really easily. They have a little section that says the percentage of your profile that is complete. And so I think LinkedIn knows its job, knows its business really, really well. And I would follow that sort of standard. Welcome.
So Daniel, we'll see if any more questions come in the chat, but in the meantime, I wanted to share with you, there are many students that have put thank you so much in the chat. So they really appreciate your help today. And there are many actually in there. So please, take that in. And it looks like, do we have any more questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay, and do you have any questions? Is that Chanel?
Personally, I think I'm good. The presentation, I feel like answered a lot of my questions. So, thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate you all letting me, take a moment to speak with all of you about this. It's such an important topic. Being able to develop your online presence, being able to know how to network. The phrase networking itself, honestly, it was such a scary term to me. It's the only word that comes to mind. But before I understood what networking was, the idea of networking itself was kind of frightening to me. I had this strange vision of me like in a tuxedo and eating fancy foods and talking about fancy things. And the whole notion really turned me off, to be totally honest with you. And so not until I started understanding what networking is, like, being able to really just be human with somebody and build a relationship with somebody, that you can help each other out with down the road. What I love about LinkedIn, unlike, let's say, like a Facebook or a Twitter or what have you, is that we all get why we're here, right? I don't feel any sort of sense of embarrassment asking somebody for help on LinkedIn, because we're on LinkedIn. It's a networking tool for professionals. If I'm on Facebook or Twitter, I feel bad, like, oh, should I ask them for that? I don't know. That feels a little weird. But LinkedIn, there's none of that weirdness happens with LinkedIn. We're all professionals. It's a professional networking service, and it's a tool that I think is really underutilized right now.
Well, thank you, Daniel. I'd like to thank you so much for your insightful presentation. I'm looking to see. Okay, there are students that want to connect with you. Can they connect with you via email?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and put my email in the doobly-doo here in 1 second, and feel free to reach out. I am happy to, if any of you have a LinkedIn that they want critiqued, email me. We'll talk about it. I'm happy to take a look at your page in 1 second.
People
No,
think the session was informative and useful. They're thankful, and as am I, to have you as a distinguished speaker today. I'd also like to let students know that we have more things to come for internship week. So at 4 o'clock, we have micro internships with Parker Dewey. And that's our partnership that we have between CSUN and Parker Dewey. We've joined hands and Together, we are presenting micro internships to you. You'll get to learn more about what is a micro internship and how to participate. There are a lot of opportunities. They're all paid, by the way. So I hope you can come at 4 p.m. And then tomorrow we have Resume Makeover. So we're excited about Resume Makeover. That's if you want to get your resume critiqued. And it's really fun. We have a fun day on Resume Makeover. You can sign up for that in Handshake. And then later on in the afternoon, we will have Blue Shield as our speaker. And then we have many more to come on Thursday. But I'm grateful to Daniel for your presentation today, and thank you for participating.
Thank you. And I just want to say really quick, shout out to Princess. That's the nicest thing I think anyone said to me all year. I appreciate that greatly.
Okay, thank you, Princess. And to the rest of you, like I said, people are saying really lovely things, Daniel. And thanks for being here today.